Ogden Hall, an Animas High School radio mystery play, directed by Joy Kilpatrick, written and acted by Elizabeth Barrett, Nizhoni Benally, Madalynn Tharp, and featuring Dusty Grannis as Ben.
Welcome to Ogden Hall, in Old English Manor in Britain, and the majestic home of Sophia Seltferen. The war is over, and a wedding is to commence. To celebrate this occasion, I have invited some special guests to gather for the weekend.
Ben, oh Ben, little Benny boy, one day your foolish antics will be the end of you. What do I do? What do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'll find something, anything. I'll figure this out. I'll find something.
They call it perception. They call it noticing things. They call it sixth sense. They call it every name under the sun, but you only know what it is if you have it. Any average person knows how to trust their logic. A smart person can trust their feelings as well.
This food is fantastic.
We have the finest cooks in all of the country.
You see, some things give me strong feelings. Sometimes they're good, sometimes bad, but experience has taught me that they're almost always right.
I've tasted better.
Oh, Grandma, thanks for making the trip, eh?
And I couldn't place it, but something about this place was not giving me good feelings.
Now, let's at least pretend that we like each other.
My name is Eloise Tonks. I'm Ellie to close friends, Ms. Tonks to colleagues, and a fair group of lowlives and criminals known me by words too nasty to repeat. Come now, Abby, we don't need to be too civil. Just when my friend was starting to loosen up for once, a glare from a certain fiancé stopped her in her tracks. Now, I call myself a people person. I get along well with pretty much everyone, but you don't want to be on my bad side, and Ben was towing that line. Abby, you've invited quite a crowd to this gathering.
Well,
The more the merrier. Abigail and I are blessed with many good friends.
Abby, you were saying?
Only a few were actually invited by me. I still have to meet Ben's friends.
I keep a mental record of how many times I've wanted to smack Ben Ogden. It helps me refrain from actually doing it. Let's just say the number, around 450, I think, increased significantly at that party. I scanned the room. Though there were really only a few people at the table, it felt like many more. Much of the chatter seemed to be coming from a few seats to my right. For such a young girl, Abby's little sister sure could make a lot of noise. Her name was Peggy, and every movement she made radiated a childlike exuberance. She wore a vivid scarlet dress, close to all limits when it came to modesty. I watched her face and saw no traces of doubt there.
And then I said to him, I know you are, but what am I?
Across from Peggy was a face I didn't know. At first glance, she looked to be a small young man, but there were definite feminine qualities to her face and the shape of her body, and I heard it in her voice as well when she spoke. Oh my, I can't stand people who act like that. She wore a suit rather than a dress. Her hair was neat and short, swept back into a small ponytail on the back of her head. I watched her cut a slice of meat into small, equal pieces. She was amicable and charismatic, yet very meticulous. There was something about her that longed for validation. I caught her name, Samantha, in the conversation. Abigail's mother was also at the table. I had met her before, though we'd interacted less than one might think. She was obviously not English. Her voice was heavy with an odd accent, and her name was Tazba. I remembered that she'd identified as Navajo in the past. She must have come to England with Abby's father. Unlike most in her situation, she did nothing to hide her history, occasionally even speaking words in her native tongue. Kind and patient, with a slight flair for drama, Tazba was able to thrive socially. I was surprised that Ben didn't despise her for her race, but then he seemed to do just fine at simply ignoring her.
I see you have inherited the talent of storytelling, my daughter. Your grandmother was a fine storyteller, as well as your great-grandmother. I am proud to see you carrying this on away.
Directly across from me, with a face of regal disdain, was the oldest person in the room. Ben had called her grandmother. I recalled that her last name was Seltferen. She didn't seem like the type to go by her first. She hadn't spoken since her earlier remark about the food, which she didn't even touch. Quite an evening, eh?
I suppose.
One might attribute her quietness to contempt, but to me she seemed nervous. Perhaps it was her frail figure, or the way she held her hands close in a knitted red shawl. Her outfit, a long dress with the color of delicate lace, was stately, yet frayed at the edges. Her personality seemed the same way. But I assume you've seen much more. She didn't respond. It was as I suspected. She was too concerned with something else to bother with conversation.
The war hasn't left much time for parties lately, though...
Which is why ours is the finest around, recovering splendidly.
He cut her off again. Frankly, Ben was one of the only guests at the gathering that didn't seem to be bothered by anything. Overconfident, entitled, talkative. He was only acting his usual infuriating self. Abby, on the other hand, she was obviously not feeling very well. I told her so many times that this marriage wasn't a good idea, and it seemed she was just realizing it herself. It was as if his favorite hobbies were manipulation and walking all over people. That sick pig, I was thinking. If it had been any different man, my Abby would have had the good sense to leave already. If only it had been a different man. But it was too late now. As I watched Abby squirm in her seat, I had only one thought, one goal. I had to help my friend in any way that I could. After dinner, I stepped out into an empty hall. I needed some time to myself, but of course I wasn't going to get it.
Miss Almike.
Well, oh, hello. Sophie, was it? The old lady was the last person I expected to follow me. It became quite clear to me that she wasn't there for pleasant conversation.
My name is Sophia, but you may call me Mrs. Seltfern.
And you can call me Sam.
You're my grandson's business partner, correct?
Partner is a word which suggests equality. If you're someone's partner, they treat you fairly, value your opinion, and vice versa. Well, I'd been valuing him plenty, but I realized I never really got much in return. I began to wonder, why am I here?
Miss Almike,
Yes?
I asked you a question.
Pardon me, ma'am. I must not have heard.
Are you my grandson's business partner, or are you simply here for the soufflé?
The soufflé was excellent, Miss Seltferen, though I do happen to work with Ben as well. Shall we walk?
If you insist.
Your house is magnificent, Miss Seltferen. How old is
It's
it?
Victorian, our family's ancestral domicile.
I couldn't help but notice how she spit out the words like rotten fruit. One would think a familial treasure such as this would bring some sort of pride. This lady was beginning to strike me as, well, odd to say the least.
However, Miss Almike, my age doesn't limit me to pitiful small talk. I came to ask you about my grandson.
What about him?
The lack of respect among your generation is shocking to me. I would like to know more about my only living relative and sole heir to the Ogden Hall.
With all due respect, madam, I am curious as to why you cannot ask Ben himself about this.
He's not close to me. It seems my grandson has changed and grown so much from the child I knew him to be. I would like to get to know him before I'm gone, and he hasn't given me that chance.
And this broke my heart at the time, I will admit. An old widow, alone in life and shut out by her grandson, just wanting someone to talk to. It was too bad that Ben seemed to treat her much like he had been acting toward me. And do you think I know him well?
Are you not quite close with each other? Does he confide in you, and vice versa? He speaks of you as a friend.
Friend, Miss Seltford, our relationship is professional. We cooperate, but I was not aware that your grandson spoke of me as a friend. Ben would have been hurt by those words if he'd heard them. The truth was, I shouldn't have taken our differences of opinion so much to heart. But it felt like he'd wanted to show me how little control I had, and I hated that feeling more than anything. I noticed then that the old woman seemed relieved. What, were you worried about your grandson consorting with me? Not remotely interested in that sort of thing.
I haven't worried about my grandson since...
Well, don't take it to heart. Ben's not very affectionate by nature.
I suppose that's one trait he did inherit from me.
My goodness, whatever makes you think that?
If you are wise, you will take heed of his nature. Do you realize that your insecurities are practically written all over your face?
Excuse me?
You cut your hair short, you wear the clothes of a businessman. It's quite obvious that you wish to insert yourself into a higher crowd, that you desire to belong among a group whom you know will never accept you.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but I...
Be careful of people who will use that to manipulate you, Miss On Mike.
I was telling myself that she was crazy, but deep down, I knew she was right.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I must retire for the night.
Was she telling me to watch out for Ben? At the time, I could definitely understand why. I realize now that it's him who should have been afraid.
These old stairs are such an eyesore, and have they always been so long and steep? I can't believe I have to live in such an excessively large house. I can't stop thinking about all the guests here to celebrate my wedding. My wedding. I don't want this wedding. I don't want to marry him. I continue down the long, dark, and eerie hallway to an old oak door with paint chipping off its face. Inside was the less than cozy bedroom. This room may be creepy, but at least here I can be separate from the thoughts of the wedding. I laid back on the dusty bed. It seemed strange for guests of my own wedding to be more involved and excited about it than even I was. Who is it? I was just starting to relax. Who insists upon disturbing me?
It's me!
Oh, Ellie, it's you. Eloise is always good at cheering me up.
Who are you expecting? A ghost?
Well, this place is quite old and...
Creepy! You're gonna have to get used to it.
Oh, and why do you say that?
Well, after your wedding, you'll be living here full time. How do you feel about that?
I don't know.
Your words say that, but your face tells a different story. You don't want to be married, do you?
Well, not to him, but I'll do whatever I need to, my dear Ellie. Spending time like this with Eloise is much more fun than sitting around that over-polished dining table, making small talk with people I hardly know.
But in all seriousness, Abby, if you really resent this, then you don't have to marry that toad.
Oh, please, Eloise, you're never serious. Plus, it's not like there's anything I can actually do.
All you gotta do is be creative.
No thanks. I'll just leave that part to you. You're much more creative than I am.
Goodness, you're hopeless.
Pardon? But what makes you say that?
Come on, there's always a way out.
Yes, and what do you suggest I do?
Like I said, you just have to think creative.
Creatively, yes, I know.
So, you're not gonna do anything about the wedding?
Why is she staring at me? Is she trying to give me a hint about something? Not like I could do anything.
I can't believe I'm gonna be losing my best friend. Especially to that toad.
I jumped up to hug at Eloise. You'll never lose me, I promise. And thank you for always being there for me.
Gosh, it's so late. I best get some sleep. And Abby, don't worry too much about the wedding. I promise that everything will work out the way it needs to. Trust me.
When she left, I felt cold and empty, like part of myself had just walked out the door and left me behind. I slumped back on the hard armchair and tried to pick up where I left off in the book. I feel so alone. It must be this house that makes me feel this way. I know that people from the party are here and not that far away, yet I feel unpleasantly alone, like someone's watching me. It's eerie, too. Even in the brightly lit parlor, I get the terrible feeling that this house could swallow me whole if it liked. Oh, what am I doing? I'm just scaring myself. Even more. I need something to lighten the mood. Oh, an old radio.
What happened?
Excuse me. Why are you all yelling?
You! It must have been you, Peggy! You! It must have been you, Peggy!
Why is Samantha yelling at me? Excuse me, you shouldn't accuse me of things, especially when I don't know what I'm being accused of.
Don't play innocent! If it was you, you could have doubled back and made it look like you just arrived on the scene of the crime!
Play innocent? Crime? What were you talking about?
Dear Sammy, we shouldn't be jumping to conclusions. Who knows who did it?
My mother put her arm around me and glared at Samantha with a "don't accuse my daughter of things" sort of look. Won't someone please tell me what happened?
Mrs. Knox is right. Samantha, we don't have any proof who did it, yet. It may not have even been one of the guests. Someone could have broken in. What do you think, Miss Selfrin? You've been very quiet this whole time.
Well, it could have been. We should probably fill Peggy in on what happened before we do anything.
Eloise looked me right in the eye with an analyzing expression. I felt myself recoil under her intense stare.
Ben is dead.
What?
He was murdered.
Should I feel more sad about this? He may have been arrogant and boring, but did he deserve this? Maybe he did. No, what am I thinking? I've been trying to sleep. What on earth are you all doing up still and yelling nonetheless?
Oh, Abigail, my sweet little Abigail, I'm so sorry.
My mother flung her arms around Abby's neck. Mother's crying? I didn't even think that she liked Ben. Then again, she can be a bit dramatic. Mother, what are you doing? Why are you sorry?
Ben's dead. He was murdered.
Oh no.
I forgot you were here, Abby, but it could have been you, I guess.
What? I would never do such a thing.
We just talked about this. It might not have even been one of us. Plus, Abigail would never commit such a heinous crime. It's most likely that someone broke into the mansion. They could still be here.
Oh my, what do we do?
Well, it's probably the best course of action to go search the mansion in pairs. Actually, if we went alone, we would have more of a chance of finding the culprit. The reason we're going about this in pairs is that the murderer could still be one of us, and we don't want anyone trying to escape.
With that notion, Eloise glared around at the rest of us as if she was scanning for a sign of guilt.
Okay, everyone, let's split up. How about Abigail and Miss Selfridge?
No. I want to go with Eloise, because she's an inspector, after all.
Right. Then it'll be Miss Seltford and I, Abigail and Miss Knox, and Samantha and Peggy. Is everyone good with that?
Yes, and yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, then let's split up and search the mansion.
All of the guests departed the room, heading in separate directions, until it was just Sam and I left. I could still feel the panic thick in the air, even after most of the others had gone. We stood for a moment, while Sam stared at me suspiciously. Does she actually think that I murdered Ben?
You'd better not be suspecting me, and don't try anything.
You still think I murdered him? Just because he was boring, obnoxious, spoiled, and he refused to let me join your business, doesn't mean that I would kill him.
Well, it could have been anyone, but you did arrive at the scene of the crime last, so you're still the top suspect in my book.
Actually, my sister was the last one to enter that room, and you're just as likely the culprit as anyone else. But I'm going to follow Eloise's judgment. She's a professional inspector. Now, come on, I want to try to catch the person who murdered Benjamin. I marched down the hallway. Sam followed me at a distance, still throwing suspicious looks at me as we walked.
Got to show it.
Coming, Mother, and please, there's no need for you to call me baby anymore.
Show it, Nille.
Yes, I suppose I will always be your baby. Who do you believe it could have been, Mother?
I believe many people here could have had a motive away. Benjamin was not the most well-liked person here.
Yes, you're right about that, Mother.
Why did you accept to marry him, Abby? He was not kind or respectful at all, and he was even a little racist, unlike your father.
Mother, I don't think that you would ever consider any man to be as good as father.
Away, I have met many men as good as your father from where I came from, and I believe there are white men just as good as him too. You deflected my earlier question, Chouette. Why did you accept to marry him?
I don't know, Mother. I've just known him my whole life and thought maybe it would work out somehow.
Couldn't help but disagree with why my daughter had wanted to marry Ben Ogden. You shouldn't marry someone because you've known them from a long time. You should marry someone because you love who they are and they love who you are, so long as you weren't related. But then again, I didn't know the white customs as well, even after all this time living with them. Did you ever hear the story of how me and your father met?
Yes, Mother, I have.
It didn't hurt if she heard it again. Your father came to America in search of adventure. He always wanted to travel the world. He was passing through where my clan lived one day on his adventure. Sheje Yajito Shinai were following him, but your father was an observant man. He knew they were following, so while he and his horse were passing under a tree, he grabbed a branch while the horse kept walking. As the horse kept moving, it started to lift off the ground because your father was holding on to it, and the branch. He then backed the horse up and did the same thing over again, then did it one more time before the branch broke. He showed how strong he was to them without threatening them. Later that day, he met my family, and that's how we met.
You never told me it was your brother and uncle that were following him.
Yes, I suppose I never have. But I'm telling you this story, Wade, because your father showed his strength without an outright confrontation. He showed that he respected our people. In turn, he earned our respect. He didn't demand respect. Ben is the exact opposite of him. He demanded respect and never showed any in return. You should never just marry a man because you've known them for a long time, Chouette. I watched as Abby walked up to a wall, pressing something on it, and watched as the wall opened.
Come on, Mother. If the killer knew about the secret tunnels, then they could have escaped through one of them. Mother, why do you seem shocked?
Abby, how did you know of these?
I've spent a lot of time here, Mother. Practically grew up in these halls. I know almost all the secret passages. Come on, we shouldn't waste any more time.
I sighed as I followed her through. The hall was covered in complete darkness as the door closed behind me, and we continued our way through, with Abby leading the way. You know, I heard an owl when we were at dinner.
An owl?
Yes, it was warning us, bringing us a message that something bad was going to happen.
You believe that they bring bad messages?
Yes, there are many stories indicating that what they say is true. This is just one of them now.
Maybe I should start believing that too.
Yes, you should. It's good to always listen to these messengers. Finally, we reached the end of the hall. Abby opened the door and we stepped out. We were at the end of a hall, the end's wall being decorated with some sort of weird-looking... These are strange hatchets, aren't they, Away?
Mother, I believe those are battle axes, not hatchets.
Oh. We continued our way down the halls with Abby in front. We went down multiple corridors and secret passageways that Shoei thought the murderer may have escaped through. We finally ended back in the parlor.
Oh, look, Mother. There's Eloise and Miss Seltfern. Hello, Eloise. Miss Seltfern.
I couldn't help but notice that Miss Seltfern's already naturally pale face seemed to pale to that of a white sheet when we had entered. Eloise, Miss Seltfern, it's nice to see you. How does your search go?
Abby, Miss Knox, it's good to see you too. We're yet to find anything leading us to the murder. Have you by chance seen Peggy and Sam?
I'm afraid not, Elle.
I see. I think it would be best for us to find them and meet back here to discuss our thoughts and findings.
Abby and I can go find them.
Mother, do both of us really have to go? You can go and I can stay.
No, Abigail, we shouldn't go anywhere alone. Go with Tazba. You should both be safe if you stay together.
Okay, Eloise.
Come on, Shoei. I grabbed my daughter's hand and pulled her towards the hall entrance. Abby again leads the way down the halls. As we continue down the halls, I looked at the art and pottery and weapons that decorated them. I see more of those weird hatchets. Battle axes is what Abby called them. You know, my father first taught me how to throw a hatchet. He believed I should be able to defend myself.
I didn't know that. Is that why you taught me and Peggy how to fire that gun?
Yes, you should always be prepared to defend yourself. I heard voices up ahead as we rounded a corner. 2 people crashed into Abby and me.
Mother, Abby! When Sam was saying that she wanted to run into some of the other guests, I didn't think that she meant it literally. Everyone's been looking for you too. We're all going to meet in the parlor.
Why? Did you actually catch someone?
Not yet.
I think we can all lighten up a bit now. I mean, it's not like anyone else has died.
Yet.
What?
All I'm saying is that if no one has yet found a killer, it means that they could still be among us.
Samantha's right. Now, we really must be getting to the parlor. We don't want to keep Eloise and the others waiting.
Where have you been?
Did you happen to see anyone? Abigail and I found Peggy and Samantha wandering around the lower northern corridor. They looked quite lost.
I see that everyone took my advice on returning. That's a good sign. However, since no signs of a break-in were found, I must point out that we are all currently suspects. But we're innocent until proven guilty, right? Did I accuse anyone in particular of being guilty?
Well, you kind of accused everyone.
Yeah, who put you in charge? I just got off the phone with the head inspector at the Brooksburg police station. I'm in charge until he gets here.
Yes, Eloise is quite intelligent and very good at her job. We should all be listening to her.
Now I suggest that you all make yourselves comfortable. We have a long night ahead of us.
I think that we need to start taking action. You know, like questioning witnesses. What do you think, Eloise?
The only problem is that I don't think anyone here witnessed the murder. Miss Selford, is she all right?
She fainted. What do we do?
Someone get a glass of water.
I'll get one.
Mrs. Selford, are you all right?
I think so. What happened?
You fainted.
I think that before we begin questioning each other, we should have some tea to calm our nerves and maybe take a walk around the hall to clear our minds.
That sounds like a very good idea, Abby.
Fine, but remember, no one is to leave the mansion. I brought you a cup of tea.
That's very generous of you, Miss Almike.
Good to know I'm not the only one who seems to have a habit of fainting.
It's not a habit of mine.
But it happens when you're under stress, is that right? From overwhelming feelings like terror, or perhaps guilt.
What are you implying? That I did this?
You know something about the murder that happened tonight, Miss Selfrin. I can tell. So why don't you spill the beans, as they say, and just let me know before I stop being so nice?
Miss Almike, I am done with this conversation.
Well, I'm not.
Leave me be. I do not wish to speak of the killer.
You seem to know who the killer is. Well, spit it out. Is it you? Is it Peggy? Is it the old Indian lady who always acts so strange? You don't understand. I need to know this. I can't die here. If I stay here not knowing who it is, they could come after me. And if I leave, then I'm instantly framed. Lying puts us all at risk, old woman.
And the truth is even more dangerous, which is why we're both lucky we know. We know nothing. Nothing at all. Leave me alone.
Wait! No, come back here! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh God! Oh my
What
God.
happened?
Oh my God!
Oh my goodness.
Where is everyone? Where the bloody hell is everyone? Oh God!
My daughters,
oh God.
Grandma, my daughters.
Oh God.
What has happened to my daughters?
It's Miss Seltfaren. She's been murdered.
Where were you? You can't go running off like this when a killer is on the loose.
Calm down, Mother. None of us is injured. Except, apparently, Miss Seltfern. But why? Why kill her too?
I don't know, Peggy, but we are going to find out. Everyone please sit down. Tea can wait. This has become an even more dangerous situation. Now we're one suspect down. The culprit is definitely someone in this room.
Wait a minute. Sam was the first one here, and she's always panicking and blaming others, probably to cover up her own crime.
That's true.
Well, no, that's not how it went. She was dead when I showed up. Can anyone verify that?
I'm not accusing her quite yet, but I will point out that I never saw this woman while the rest of us were taking a walk.
We were talking, having a polite conversation in the parlor. Then she just randomly ran away. I followed her, but she must have run into someone else first. I'm not the guilty one, I promise. I promise.
If you're so sure of that, Samantha, then who is the guilty one? Don't stay quiet now when you've been accusing me this whole time. I knew there was something off about you. You never believed us, and now you're telling us to believe you.
What about you? You, Abigail, and Eloise took an awful long time to get here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was supposed to take 5 seconds to run all the way across this enormous house. I apologize for not instantly appearing at your side, Your Majesty.
Why would you have even been on the other side of the house? You're obviously lying about something.
Don't you dare accuse my daughter of this. In our culture, we wouldn't dare touch the dead. We wouldn't murder our next of kin in cold blood.
Funny that you should say that rather than your daughter herself. Does Abigail even still abide by your culture? And doesn't anyone else find it suspicious that these 3 were the last to show up here? Now hold on, everybody. Though we may have some theories about who did this, they are nothing but baseless claims without physical evidence and logical connections. We'll use the strategy of elimination to discover the culprit. I think that almost everyone here had a motive to kill Benjamin.
Come to think of it, Eloise, you never seemed to like Benjamin. You were always glaring at him and grinding your teeth whenever he spoke.
It's true, I didn't like Ben. And yes, I thought that Abby was above marrying that rude, manipulating toad. But I would never break the law, even for my best friend. And how do we know that you aren't lying?
I vouch for Eloise. She would rather die than murder her worst enemy, and Eloise never lies.
What about you, Miss Knox? I've heard you express many a time that you disapprove of this wedding and of Ben.
Of course I didn't kill Ben. The only reason I let Abigail marry Benjamin is so that Abigail could inherit the grand fortune of the Ogdens. I confess that my plan wouldn't have worked if I murdered Benjamin before him and Abby were ever married.
Well, my mother's argument does make sense, but that's still shallow of you, Mother.
I know, I just wanted what was best for my dear Owit.
I think for now we can scratch Miss Knox's name off the suspect list. Do you all agree?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
All right, then. That leaves Abigail, Samantha, Peggy, and me. It is worth mentioning that Samantha was alone with Miss Seltford several times tonight. I'm not accusing her of anything just yet, but I do think we all deserve an explanation.
Right.
Samantha, what do you have to say for yourself? What exactly happened between you and Miss Seltford while you were talking? Well, she first came to talk to me after dinner. I thought that it was strange that she asked me about Ben. She wanted to know more about him in general. Said that she hadn't had much of a chance to get close to him. It was just like she was an old grandma trying to get to know her grandson. And that's what I thought until she warned me about Benjamin. She implied that he was dangerous.
Really?
I thought that she might have actually been the one to do it. So I approached her when we took a break, and I tried to get some information out of her. She shouted at me that she didn't know anything, and she just ran. I tried to follow her, but Miss Seltford was already dead when I found her. Someone else must have gotten to her before I did.
I'm still not convinced by Sam's argument. No one saw the murder happen, so there's no witnesses to back up her claims. Unless... Did anyone see the second murder?
You sound worried, Abby.
I am worried. For the safety of the witness. That is, if there were any witnesses.
I think that if there was a witness, they would have told us by now. I'm sure that everyone here is just as anxious as I am to catch the criminal behind this.
Oh, that's good. No one else is in danger then.
I wouldn't call it good exactly, Abby. Seeing as without a witness, we aren't any closer to finding out who did it than before.
Oh, Samantha, you know what I meant.
Please, if we start fighting now, we won't be able to find the culprit before morning. Besides, I think that I've almost got this mystery figured out.
Eloise, how do we know that you aren't the murderer? You could pretend to know who did it while you're actually framing them.
Don't worry, Miss Knox. Once I'm completely sure I know who it is, then I'll have more than enough evidence to convince you all.
The lights!
What's going on? Don't leave this room! They're escaping! I thought I'd find you here. You can't escape. All the doors out of the mansion are locked. And don't think of threatening me. I have a pistol in my pocket that I'd rather not use. You know, it's rather disappointing. In the time that I've known you, I never thought that you would actually murder someone. You seem to have more sense than this. I thought you were better than this. You could never really hide anything from me, could you, Abigail?
How long have you known?
Long enough. You were always one of the last people to arrive in the room. Miss Seltford was always nervous around you because she knew it was you. You seemed quite relieved when I said that no one had witnessed the second murder. You've been able to shoot a gun since you were 10, and you never wanted to marry Ben. You never even remotely liked Ben, did you?
It's true. I've always loathed Benjamin. He was a horrible person, even when he was young. He was rude, arrogant, selfish, and entitled. But worst of all, he used to bribe and blackmail people to get what he wanted. I'm pretty sure he even blackmailed his own grandmother. Please, don't look at me like that. You're the one who told me to get creative, or whatever that means. I thought for a moment that you were going to do it yourself.
I meant that you should call off the wedding yourself, or act horrible so he'd call it off. Or, Abigail, don't you see that you're as bad as he was? Actually, you're worse.
What? How could you say that to your best friend?
You think I'm going to sugarcoat this? You are literally a murderer, Abigail.
I did this so that I wouldn't lose you. Could you please try and understand me?
Why, Abigail, why? You've ruined many people's lives tonight, and think about how your mother and sister will feel. Besides, you didn't have to marry him. You could have talked to him, or had him arrested for blackmail.
So what are you going to do? Have me arrested?
This door will be unlocked if you choose to leave.
I can't believe that you would just let me walk out of here. But can I really never see my family or you again?
Goodbye, Abby.
Wait!
I said goodbye, Abby!
You never asked why I did it.
I know why.
I love you, Eloise.
I will always love you too, Abigail. Ogden Hall was recorded at Animas High School recording studios by Dusty Grannis. The sound is from Zapsplat.com. Are you looking for a high school that breaks all the boundaries of a traditional education?
Animas High School is a project-based school in Durango, Colorado, and it might just be your nest.
Go Ospreys!